Hey, and welcome back to the Bake Wellbeing YouTube channel. For this week's episode of Baking for Your Wellbeing Tutorials, we're going to take it right back to basics with a really simple but tasty bake. Today we're going to make chocolate chip cookies. These bad boys are so simple to make but so tasty, and they're the perfect treat for a tea and talk because they're dunkable. And who doesn't love a cookie with a cup of tea? If you want to know more about tea and talk, it's basically sitting down with a loved one, friend or family member with a tasty treat and a cup of tea and just talking through how you're feeling, anything that's on your mind at the time, and just to check in with that person. By having these really simple conversations, we can do amazing things for raising awareness towards mental health. Now, I'm not going to pretend that baking is always perfect. I watch YouTube tutorials and I think, oh my god, how have they made it all look so easy? Well, I forgot to add the vanilla essence to this bake, but it doesn't matter. And sometimes following a recipe to the absolute T is no fun at all. So I really encourage you to get creative with your bakes, and even though a recipe may say you need this much of this and this much of that, if you want to add a little bit extra, go for it. And if you want to experiment with some new flavours or even add your own ingredients, you are absolutely welcome to. The great thing about these cookies that I'm going to show you today is that it's a very basic recipe, and this can be the foundations for all different types of cookies. So get creative. Now let me take you through it step by step. Okay, so first of all, I've got all my ingredients laid out over here to make it nice and easy. And the first thing I'm going to do is pop the butter into the bowl. So this butter has been left at room temperature for a few hours, so it should be nice and soft now. I'm just going to mash up the butter a little bit. That just makes it a little bit easier to add in the sugar. So I'm just using the spatula just to press down on the butter. Of course, this is much quicker if you have an electric hand mixer or a full-on KitchenAid. But I quite like doing this kind of stuff with my hands. It takes me back to baking with my nan when I was a little girl. So once your 125 grams of butter is looking nice and smooth like this, it's time to add in the sugar. So here I have 125 grams of caster sugar and 100 grams of light brown soft sugar, which I've just mixed together. So I'm going to add this into the bowl now. I'm going to do this in two halves just to make sure I get a really nice and combined mixture. And I'm just pressing down onto the lumps of butter to sort of spread it out and at the same time combine the sugar with it. And then I'm going to add in the rest of the sugar and just continue with that same motion. Make sure you get all the butter down from the sides. So that's going to be looking pretty dry at this point, but that's absolutely fine because we're about to add in the egg, which is going to make it a bit less stiff. Okay, so once that's all combined like that, I'm now going to crack the egg into a separate bowl. I'm going to give this egg a really gentle whisk, and then I'm going to add that into the mixture. So this is going to loosen up your mixture quite a lot, and now you can give it a proper mix. Great, so now it's looking a little bit more like a cookie dough. I'm now going to grab a sieve and start to sieve in the plain flour. This is 225 grams of plain flour, and again I'm going to do this bit by bit too. I'm just going to keep going with that. And in goes the last bit of flour. Now at this point your mixture will start to get really stiff, and the stiffness will depend on lots of things, so the temperature of your room and the temperature of the butter. If it's really stiff here and you're finding it hard to combine the flour in, you can add just a little drop of water or milk, and that should help you along a bit. But the best solution is to just get your hands in, and that's the best way to get it nice and smooth and to make sure you've got everything out from the bottom of the bowl. This is another part that really takes me back to my childhood. Lovely. And now I'm going to add in 200 grams of chocolate chips. So you can get creative here and add in literally anything you want. So Nut pieces are also really nice if you like a nutty cookie. You can even put in the zest of a lemon or an orange. And I would also recommend mint choc chip cookies with fresh, finely chopped mint. And if you're not a lover of getting your hands messy like this, then a KitchenAid mixer with the dough attachment will do this just fine for you. Or you could always do it with your spatula, but it might take a little bit more time. So once the choc chips are all incorporated, I'm just going to pop that back into the bowl and wash my hands. I'm now going to take a large baking tray and I'm just going to put a sheet of greaseproof paper over the top. Now this mixture should make about 12 cookies, so I'm going to just start to take a little section out and just roll that up into a ball and pop that down onto the tray. You can weigh your cookie balls if you want them all to be exactly the same size and shape, but I quite like homemade looking cookies, so they won't all be exactly the same. You want to spread these out quite nicely on the tray, and I'm just going to pat them down to get them to roughly the shape that I want them to be. And I'm just going to get another tray to put the rest on. So once they're all ready and evenly spread out on the trays, I'm going to pop these into the fridge for about 15 minutes. This is going to stiffen up the cookie dough a little bit and help to stop it spreading too much when they go into the oven. I'm also now going to pop the oven on to 180 degrees to let it preheat. So these have just spent 15 minutes in the fridge and I'm now going to pop them into the oven. So I like my cookies quite soft and gooey in the centre, so I'm going to bake mine for about 7 to 8 minutes. But if you prefer a cookie with a nice snap, then you want to leave yours in for a little bit longer, for about 10 to 11 minutes until they're golden brown around the edges. And now we just need to set the timer. They're ready! So here they come, fresh out the oven. So you're going to want to leave these in their tray for a little while to cool before you try and move them or touch them, because they're going to need a little while to stiffen up. And once they're almost completely cool, you can take them off the tray and pop them onto a plate. And there you have your chocolate chip cookies ready to serve. Thanks so much for joining us again today. I hope you enjoyed the bake. If you decided to get creative with flavours or experiment with some new ingredients, please let us know in the comments what you decided to do. And don't forget to send us a photo and tag us on Instagram, because we'd love to see your bakes. Make sure you take some time to sit down, appreciate what you've made and feel proud of yourself. Even if it didn't go 100% to plan, no bake ever does. And sometimes that's what's quite exciting and enjoyable about baking. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.